amigos y bienvenidos a este vuestro programa Dos gatos en tierra de perros. Un podcast de actualidad donde analizamos de manera fáctica y neutral las noticias más relevantes de la política y cultura norteamericana.
Hi, this is Joe Magaha. Thank you, friends, for being with me for another episode of Dos Gatos en Tierra de Perros. We just completed an episode in Spanish, and now we're to our English episode with a Chinese gentleman who lives in Mexico, Jiayao Qi. Welcome, Jiayao. Welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming, for sure. Now, we talked quite a bit in Spanish about your adapting to living in Mexico and the different cultural differences between Mexicans and Chinese people, and the perceptions. Now, you said towards the end of our conversation that you've been to various states in the United States. Do you think of maybe moving to the United States at any point?
Well, you see, many Chinese here in Mexico or in Central America, they usually have an American dream. Like they would like to tell me that, okay, my goal of coming here to Latin America is actually for moving or migrating to the United States or to Canada. But at this point, I think it is not my dream, because I think I can enjoy a better life here in Mexico, especially in this city of Saltillo, because I really love living here. I've been to many cities in the United States, but I don't think I can live so comfortably as now I do here in Mexico.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean,
I'm sorry, I think I don't speak English so well as before, maybe because I speak Spanish every day now.
Oh no!
Sometimes
you
realize
sound fine.
I realize that I have Spanish accent or Mexican accent when I speak English. It's quite surprising to me.
Yes. Well, yeah, being a polyglot, it's you use different parts of your brain for different languages. And I've found, even like after I have one podcast in Spanish, then to transfer to English and do an English podcast, sometimes it's hard for me to get going even. And I mean, I'm a native speaker of both languages, but I mean, I was born in Spain to American parents, so I always heard Spanish and I always heard English. But still, after speaking Spanish for an hour, you try to start speaking English and it's like you have to switch gears, It's tricky.
That's true.
Yeah. And I know with Chinese,
Yeah,
it's a little,
I believe so.
It's even trickier because at least English and Spanish have some of the same roots. I mean, some of the words are similar, just different pronunciation. But Chinese has a completely different base to work out of. Yeah. So it's you must
That's
have
true.
like your brain's just all over the place.
That's true. Yeah. So theoretically, it should be easier for the Mexicans to learn English than for the Chinese, right?
You would think, but
the situation
is the opposite. Yeah.
I think that's the opposite.
Well, I think part of it is also you guys. I think you probably are able to take English classes in China that are a little bit more advanced. Sometimes the educational system in Latin America is more difficult, but also for some reason, I mean, Spaniards have a very difficult time learning English too. Even the ones who tell me they speak English have a hard time with it. They basically, I think most people, if you learn a language as an adult, you're never going to lose your accent completely. and you're never going to speak it like somebody who spoke it as a child. But at the same time, it is possible to speak multiple languages and have a very large vocabulary. I had a coworker from Africa, and he was very intelligent. He was a doctor, but here in the States, we were working as security guards. He was trying to get his license to be a doctor out here. He had been a doctor in Africa, and he spoke very eloquently and intelligently, very large vocabulary, but he had a very thick African accent. So our bosses said, well, he doesn't speak English very well. I was thinking, he speaks it better than you. So you never know. It's a cultural thing, really, I think. So what about I mentioned, I mentioned BRICS in the last in our last conversation. I know that there's a whole group of countries outside of the United States and outside of the West that are getting together to create their own monetary system. Does that intrigue you at all, or it probably won't affect you living in Mexico? I don't think Mexico is thinking of joining. I know Brazil is in it. Yeah. What are your thoughts there? Do you think, because there's a massive amount of people in Russia and China and India and Brazil and South Africa, and now they have other countries in Africa joining, and other countries in Latin America. I believe Bolivia has been involved, and I heard that you can that in some parts of Bolivia they accept yuan as currency. Yeah. So but I'm assuming in Mexico it's not really a thing. Is that correct?
You're right. Actually, 2 years ago, I once visited Ecuador in South America, and I was surprised to see so many cars with Chinese brands on the street. And I read the statistics, and they said that almost 40% of the new cars purchased in their country in that year were from China. I was really surprised, astonished, because here in Mexico, we don't, you can see that we also have more and more Chinese cars, but not so many as 40%.
Yeah.
So I think the economic control or the ties between China and some South American countries can be very strong, much stronger than we thought, right?
Yes. Mexico China rather has become really kind of like what the United States and Russia have been trying to be for many years, in that we want to have our fingers in every country. We want to be involved in every country. I know China has many investments in Africa. They're invested in mining in Africa, and they have companies, they have whole communities in Africa. And a lot of people say that the way they do it is of course better than the way Americans do it, because at least the Chinese are creating hospitals and schools and they're living there. Americans, we go into a country and we take their minerals and then we go home. And we say bye.
Well, I don't know if that is true, because I have never been to Africa. And just according to my experience in Ecuador, I would say that, there is already a very big Chinese community there in the capital city, Quito, or the second, it's the third biggest city, Cuenca. Many Chinese are living there side by side with the retirees from the United States or Canada, right? And the very vibrant communities there. I can say in Ecuador, I could find many ingredients from China that I cannot find here in Mexico. So I cooked a lot of Chinese food there in my kitchen in Ecuador. It was a very happy experience for me. I felt that as if I was in China. It's very interesting.
So now, if you need specific ingredients that you can't find, do you order it on the internet, or how do you do for like spices or different things that aren't available in Mexico?
But here in Mexico, there is a chain store of Oriental ingredients, which is called Tojo Food. They mainly offer options of Japanese or Korean ingredients, but also some Chinese ones. And yeah, actually, I can find some ingredients even in the normal supermarkets here, like in Soriana or HEB. They also have a lot of ingredients from Asia.
Yeah, yeah. I know also a lot of, well, here in the United States, we have different food fads that food gets popular and then all of a sudden it's in every city, and ramen got very popular and now you can find it in every city in the United States, and people are doing different things with it and they're copying the Japanese. And then also, of course, sushi is popular everywhere. Is sushi available in where you live right now in Mexico?
Wow, yeah, very popular.
Ah,
Actually, I have been thinking about opening a business of sushi myself, but I haven't had a plan. But yes, I have such ideas because it seems that it's super popular here in Mexico.
yeah. Are you now you're inland,
Much more
right?
popular than Chinese food.
Ah,
I'm sorry?
wow. Wow. You are inland, right? You're not near a coast, right? Is that correct?
No, I'm not on the coast.
Yeah. So
I'm
seafood has
inland.
to be shipped in from either one end of the country or the other, right? Or where do they get their seafood? Because sushi has to be fresh.
I'm not. Yes, I'm not very sure, but I think they can find most of the fish or the shrimp or the seafood from the local supermarkets. It's available.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, in Spain, in Madrid, they love seafood and they eat tons and tons of it. But of course, Madrid is in the center of Spain. It's not on the
Uh-huh.
coast either. But as far back as I can remember, everybody was always eating fish and shrimp and all of that. So, yeah, yeah, things get popular, and then now with airplanes and stuff, you can ship stuff, like in California, we get lobster from Maine, which is completely on the other
Oh,
coast and that kind of
opposite
thing,
side. Yeah.
And then there are some things that become banned because of endangered species, that kind of thing. Like, I don't know, I have to check the law, but I know that for a while in California, we couldn't get beluga caviar because it was considered endangered. But
Mm-hmm.
you could get it in New York, and I think you could even get it in Las Vegas. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I love beluga caviar. So it's a
Yeah.
drag for me, but you can get other kinds like orcetra, sevruga, but
Mm-hmm.
just not beluga, you know.
Okay.
But that's also very, I mean, there's different kinds of caviar are used in sushi too, like topico and
Yeah.
smelt egg and the different ones. Um, yeah, I guess that's always the concern is the overconsumption and destroying the planet. From what I understand, because now there's a whole green industry being pushed, and in California, they're trying to ban combustible cars after 2035,
Mm-hmm.
and just have electric. But electric cars they're still problematic. But it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like we're probably going to get more electric cars from China
Mm-hmm.
than from Tesla, for
Mm-hmm.
example, because China can make them better and cheaper
Mm-hmm.
and ship them over. So I don't know. I think it seems like the Chinese economy, I know it's been struggling lately, but they just they just added a stimulus of a multiple billions, right, into the
Mm-hmm.
economy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you,
Actually, last month I visited China. I visited my hometown, Shanghai,
yeah.
after an absence of almost 5 years.
Mm.
And I was quite surprised of the, how do you say it? Counter, cultural shock, right?
Yes.
It's something that I experienced myself last month. And I saw a lot of electric cars on the street in the neighborhood of my parents. Yeah, I didn't know because when I left China 5 years ago, there were not so many electric cars, but it seems that it's a kind of mainstream option for the Chinese consumers now. And here in Mexico, it only started recently. Yeah, sometimes I saw just one or two, not so many as in Arizona, United States, or in China. But I know maybe it would be the trend. It would be the future.
Yeah. So do you well, you work for various companies now, but you did work for a few different universities. Do you get paid in Mexican money or in Chinese money?
Oh, I would like to tell you that I I have not received any Chinese money after I left China.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
So in Honduras, I was paid in lempira,
Mhm.
and in Ecuador in US dollars, but here in Mexico, just 100% in Mexican pesos.
Ah.
And I think as a translator, I'm paid much better than as a professor in the university. Much better. That can be a huge difference. Like it's like 4 or even 5 times
Wow.
as the payment as a professor. That is why I don't think I will be a professor anymore.
Wow. That's, I mean, good for you, but bad for students that want to go to
Yeah,
school and learn Chinese. Yeah, it's disappointing, but I know I've heard that they don't really pay, and I think in Spain they don't pay what they should to professors either. I have a friend who's in Madrid, and he told me a friend of his is a professor, and he works as an Uber driver on weekends, and he makes more money on the weekends than he makes during the week, so
yeah, I
which
can
is a
imagine.
shame. I mean, you go to school for so long and you learn all this stuff just to, work it. We should lift teachers up, I think,
Of
more.
course, of
But
course.
of course that's the way it is. Industry always the demand, the market decides what everybody gets paid, and some people win the lottery and some people don't.
Yeah, that is market economy.
Yeah. So were you able to, when you moved to out of China, were you able to keep your Chinese bank account, or did you have to open bank accounts in the different countries where you have lived?
In each country, I have different bank accounts.
Ah.
Um, yeah, I think I still have some cards from the banks of China, but I'm no longer using them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I assume, I mean, I know that if you go to Hawaii,
Mhm.
all of the ATMs have signs that they accept cards from Japan and from
Mhm.
other parts of Asia as well, because they get so many tourists.
Mhm.
Um, and I had some problems last few times I was in Spain trying to use my bank card in Spain.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, I found out, you have to call your bank and tell them you're going to be traveling. Otherwise, they think it's fraud. So the first time I tried to use it, it wouldn't let me take the money out, and it blocked it. It said consult your bank. And of course, with the time change and everything, I ended up on the phone for hours. And finally, they cleared it. But because every time I tried to take out money, it looked like I took it out. So on their end, it looked like I took out $300, $300, and I couldn't get it. And we're like needing to
Really?
go to dinner, so it's kind of crazy, but
That's
it's interesting how I think now it's a lot easier to travel from country to country and use credit cards or use other forms of payment. Cash is kind of disappearing Is it that way in
Mhm.
Mexico, or in Mexico, do people mostly carry cash?
I think in Latin America, people rely on cash much more than in China or in the United States. Because when I went back to China, when I was trying to pay something with the cash, people seemed surprised. They was like, "Where are you from?" Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm from ancient age. I'm sorry. Okay, so because here in Mexico or I think more in Honduras, people just use cash every day. Yeah, of course in Mexico they also have the application, the platform for online payment, but it's not so popular. Not so popular as in China.
Mm, mm. And now I don't even know. I know that in El Salvador, they've adopted Bitcoin as one of
Mhm.
their accepted forms of currency. Is Bitcoin popular in Mexico?
I have no idea, to be honest. Yeah. As I told you before in the conversation in Spanish, I'm not so social person. So yeah, usually I just walk to the supermarkets nearby and pay in card or in cash with card or in cash, but I have no idea about those investment. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Yeah, yeah. And do they have Bitcoin in China? Is it accepted in China, or is it allowed?
Wow, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that with BRICS, they were talking about creating a currency for BRICS, or maybe it won't be a currency. Some people were talking about it maybe becoming
Oh,
a digital currency
you know
as
what?
well.
I suddenly realized that I had a conversation with my parents last month about the digital RMB in China
Mm.
because yeah, I also read news about that. So I asked my parents, "Do you receive your pension in digital RMB?" And they told me no, not even once. Yeah. I don't know if it would be good for the consumers or not. Maybe it would be more convenient, but people also are concerned about the security or the privacy of their economic activities, you know? They, they,
Yes.
they would doubt if the government is, you know,
Watching them.
maybe watching them, right? The big brother is watching you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, now I don't know if you are familiar with, or if you know the situation, but I know that there was some tension for a while about China taking over Taiwan again, and there was almost ramping up tensions between the United States because we get all of our computer chips from Taiwan.
Mhm.
But I haven't heard anything about that in a few months. Has it kind of settled down, or where do you think the it's going?
Wow. I wish I wish I knew I would know more about that. Yeah, I have been working for two Taiwanese companies since July last year, and one of them is very famous. The first one was also a major producer of electronic products. And yeah, they also have plants in mainland China or in Mexico, India, Vietnam, in many countries. And I have opportunity. I had the opportunity of communicating with many Taiwanese colleagues, and some of them are of the same age as me. So yeah, of course we can talk a lot, especially we are both outside of Asia, right? And
Right. Yes.
that's quite interesting. And I also have a lot of friends as teachers, as Chinese teachers in all these three Latin American countries that I have lived in. And yes, I sometimes heard something from them, and we are all very worried about the potential risk of the war because many times we have seen crisis between the two sides. And yeah, it seems that quite likely, I don't know, I'm not going to predict something, okay, but I think that it seems quite inevitable. I mean, the war, it seemed quite inevitable because the Communist Party, especially the leader Xi Jinping, is quite determined to take over or to finish this problem, according to what he thinks. Okay, he thinks that it is the only chance that he can accomplish something greater than his predecessors, like Jiang or Hu or Deng or even Mao, because Mao didn't do that, right?
Yeah.
So I think he thinks that he's the one that is going to finish this, to reunify the country, to finish the war. Because according to the Communist Party, the civil war has been ongoing since 1940s. It has never ended.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. From I heard somebody say about Taiwan, they said that the Taiwanese are the real Chinese. What does that mean?
I visited Taiwan once, just for a week, a very brief visit in 2018. And I saw a lot of things, interesting things there in Taiwan. Some symbols of traditional Chinese culture, especially the temples, the religions, or you may say that the traditions, they're preserved much better than in Taiwan than in mainland China, and than where I'm from. Okay, so I think it is true that, of course, they maintain a lot of traditional Chinese values, traditional Chinese religions, music, culture, or even the descendants of Confucius is there.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I had a very complicated feeling about that place when I visited Taiwan, especially when I visited the tomb of the ex-president Jiang Jingguo, because he's from the same province as my mother. And yeah, so sometimes I can feel that I share some values with him, although I never met him. I watched his video and I listened to his speech on the internet, but I think that the people from Shanghai, from my mother's province, Zhejiang, and from Taiwan, yeah, we do have something in common that is not shared by the northerners of China or the people from Beijing. Yeah, but I have been educated many years in China, and although I'm not a Communist Party member, but I do think I don't feel so comfortable with some of the opinions that we can hear from the Taiwanese politicians. I mean, I'm not 100% agree. I don't 100%, sorry. I don't 100% agree with some of the opinions of some Taiwanese politicians, because that really sounds quite hurting to us. I mean, to the normal Chinese people. Especially, actually in the United States or in other parts of the world, there are actually a lot of mainlanders or Chinese from mainland that support the Republic of China. We're not all supporters of the People's Republic, or we're not all the supporters of the Communist Party. Many of the overseas Chinese hope that someday the Republic of China can restore its constitution or its rule in mainland China. And that is why many of the overseas Chinese still hang the flag of the Republic of China in their home. To be honest, I do.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is why we don't hope that some Taiwanese politicians say that, oh, we are just two different, completely different countries, and we don't belong to each other, as he has repeated very frequently in the recent years. We don't think that is the correct direction, because if you want to win anything against the Communist Party, you should be, how do you say that? You should be more justified than them, right? You should take the lead, or you should at least show that you're more legitimate than them. Not just refuse. Okay, we're not going to interfere your affairs. We want to be peaceful with you. No, that's impossible, because the Communist Party will never be peaceful with you. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Now, I know that there are Chinese people everywhere. I have friends from Vietnam who are ethnically Chinese. I have friends from the Philippines who are ethnically Chinese. But they almost seem like, you know, they're an exiled people, because the people that are third generation, fourth generation living here, they still speak Chinese, but I don't think they plan on going back ever. You know, maybe to visit, but not to live. Do you think that will change at any point, or you know, if I know there was a population overload for a while where there were too many people in China, and then they limited the amount of children people could have. Is there still an overpopulation issue in China? I know China is immense; it's a huge country.
When I was born, most of the parents, most of the families were only allowed to have one child, especially in the big cities like in Shanghai. But the situation is quite different now. I would like to say that, do you know that recently China has changed the year of, no, the age of, how do you say that? Age of retire?
Yes, to
Retirement.
Yeah.
Because obviously the Social Security system is not receiving enough money, enough taxes from the workers, the laborers. So they are planning to postpone the retirement age by 3 years, but almost everybody believes that it will not be the end. They will postpone it even more, like 5 years, 6 years. We don't know, but this is only the first phase. So that means there are not enough newborn babies or children or young people there in China. So the government has already lifted the ban of the, how do you say that, the only child policy. Yeah. So now theoretically, in many parts of China, a couple may have 2 or 3 children without any problem.
Interesting. Are they, you know, I think the problem with sort of depopulation, with people not having enough children and us not having enough people in the workforce, is across the West as well. It's in the United States, and it's also in Europe, and in countries like Spain and Italy. They've put out laws to try and attract descendants from their country to come back.
Yeah.
And you know, like they say, if your grandparents are from here, we'll give you citizenship. And because they want young people to come back. And they're also, I think, afraid because the immigrants that are coming over are from North Africa, and they don't want to become a Muslim country. They don't want their culture to change in that way. Is there any kind of incentivization for Chinese Americans to move to China?
I don't think that's possible. Do you believe that even Mexico also, I mean, the birth rate in Mexico is also declining drastically?
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. I just figured that they, you know, because it's a big Catholic country and they generally have many children, but Yeah. But then they're constantly losing population to move to the United States as well. So, and
That's
other
true.
countries. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
tricky. Yeah, I don't know. These decisions that governments make, I don't know if they fix things or if they just change the problem to another problem,
Mhm.
but ultimately here in the United States, they're doing the same thing. They want to raise the retirement age. And people were living longer for a while. We were extending our lifespan in the United States, I think, to 90, but now we're down to 80.
Mhm.
And I think we're going lower and I think part of it is after COVID and the economy not growing great, there's the problem with depression, and there's even a problem with drugs like fentanyl and things like that. Um, how are things in China in terms of, are people living longer, and in Mexico are people living pretty much the same as always, or have their lifespans been extended by good quality of life?
The quality of life can be different.
Different, yeah.
It's always different. And I think many Mexicans told me that, they were eager to know why the Chinese people that they saw on TikTok or even on the streets here are so slim. Yeah, and many Chinese also asked me why the Latinos look so. I'm sorry, I cannot say that word.
I guess I'll just guess.
Yeah. They were talking about the obesity problem
Obesity. Okay, yeah.
of the Mexicans, or even sometimes about the Americans. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that people have different values, have different customs.
Mhm.
And in China, we usually don't eat so sweet or
Yes.
so salty or so oily as here on this continent, right? And
Yes. Yeah.
I was shocked when I was visiting New York for the first time, because I arrived quite late and I went to a convenience store to buy something to eat because I was quite hungry. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and I found a drumstick, pierna de pollo, okay, and and I also found a donut. I
Ah.
I loved donut when I was in China.
Mhm.
So I bought that donut. I didn't know that there were syrup inside.
Oh.
Sugar outside, syrup inside. It was crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, there's a problem with sugar in the
Mhm.
United States, and they're trying to change it. Well, people are trying to change that. There's a lot of problems with the food intake in our country because a lot of it's processed, and
Mhm.
there are things that they allow in pesticides, all kinds of things that aren't allowed in other countries, and antibiotics they put in the
Mhm.
animals and things like that. So it's led to a lot of health issues, and nobody wants to deal with that. Everybody freaked out about the pandemic,
Mhm.
but I think part of the reason so many people died, is because they weren't healthy already.
Yeah.
There's obesity, diabetes, there's
Mhm.
all kinds of problems. So when you're already on the edge, then you get hit by a virus, it's going to knock you down. You're
Mhm.
not strong.
Yeah, it's quite
So,
dangerous.
yeah. Well, I think we can probably wrap this. I wanted to thank you so
Sure.
much, I for taking the time on your Saturday, and I definitely want to keep in touch. Now, you work as a translator from Chinese to Spanish,
Mhm.
for
Exactly.
various companies. I For anybody that wants to reach Qi Yao, he's he's on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So you can find him there if you want to hire him to translate. We just had a great conversation in Spanish. He speaks Spanish. Of course, he speaks Chinese, and he's enjoying life in Mexico. So thanks again. And thank you to all our listeners. And until next time.